What could this video be about? We're gonna see. Long, long ago, there were a man who tried to make his skill ultimate. Because of his bloody life, it's no accident that he was involved in the troubles. Anyway, I had to get that out of my system. It's a real cool dog. We're talking about Samurai Shodown. Video games. We've never spoken about a dog on this channel. We never will. Do we even like him? I don't know. Anyway, there's a new Samurai Shodown coming out. I don't know. This would be like the 8th game of the series or something, coming out in June 2019. I'm very excited because I'm a big Samurai Shodown fan, and I never get to talk about it, so I thought I would talk to myself and then put it on the internet because I love this shit, and Samurai Shodown is my laundromat game of choice. I'm sure if you grew up playing Neo Geo cabinets, you know what I meant. It's either your bodega machine, your pizza parlor machine, or your laundromat machine. And mine had Samurai Shodown 2. I think it was 2. Could have been 1. I'm not sure. I remember the particular Neo Geo cabinet in the laundromat that I used to frequent in the mid-90s was, it had Samurai Shodown 1 or 2. I feel like it was 2. It was maybe like 2 years old at the time. It was a newish game. I'm not sure that the third one is out yet. And there was Bust a Move in that cabinet. And I think there was a Fatal Fury game in that cabinet, but like I didn't really like understand Fatal Fury because I was a little kid. I didn't really like understand the line system. Still kind of don't. Still don't really like it. But Samurai Shodown was like the shit I played through my childhood. It was this is I don't know. I don't mean this to be diminishing towards the product, but at the time it was kind of like the Japanese Mortal Kombat. It was your cool 2D fighter that had blood and spooky characters and was like a little darker in tone than Street Fighter was at the time. And I didn't really like grow up having a Street Fighter cabinet like relatively close to me. Like I'd have to go to like a dedicated arcade for it, but if I went to any like card shop or corner store, some diners had, you know, arcade cabinets in them and stuff. Street Fighter was never really there, but Samurai Shodown always was. And I remember I really like, I don't know, enjoyed these games as a kid, but I couldn't really put my finger on it because I didn't know jack shit about fighting games. As a child, I played Mortal Kombat at my cousin's house. I had some friends who had Street Fighter 2 on Genesis, which, as you know, isn't the best way to play it. And I played it with a 3-button controller, which is double bad. But I always played this in arcades. And I couldn't... Well, I think I already said this, but I'll say it again. I didn't really, like, realize what was special about it at the time, but it was the fact that it was a decent fighting game. I kind of have my problems with 2. 2 is a sweet spot for a lot of fans, but I prefer 4 and 5. But anyway, it's not really a combo-heavy fighting game. Like, how Street Fighter is, or every anime fighter slash air dasher, if you want to call them that, or Mortal Kombat even, or Tekken especially. Those are all combo based, and especially like Street Fighter 5 right now is very combo based, and then you have your mix up and put your specials in there. Comboing gets you killed in Samurai Shodown. If you're, watching the footage, which I hope you are, attacks do a lot of damage in Samurai Shodown. This is a footsies-based game, which, if you aren't in the fighting game community, you're like, footsies, what's that? That's what you do under the table. It's really, like, baiting each other out to have the opponent use attacks and whiff and punishing them for it. And oh, excuse me, I got burps, like always, like every time I start talking. Anyway, this is like a much more slow-paced fighting game with high damage and mind games, and it's really about tricking your opponent and waiting to strike at the right time and knowing that you're gonna hit if you're gonna swing, which I probably don't do well in this footage. This is all me playing the arcade ports on a Switch. But, I don't know, because of that, it's a lot easier to get into. There's definitely a lot of tech to learn in the series, but you can still have a good time not even knowing how to pull off specials, really. Like, as you can see in the footage right there, I was blocked a couple times. That has a really long recovery animation. It slides me back on my feet. And, yeah, I get punished for that, and if the AI was being smarter right there, they would have, they would have nailed me for that. But, the fact that the rounds are quick because the damage is high, you don't need to know a lot of moves, and it's not about chaining your combos together necessarily, but more doing little bait and switches and countering and parrying and stuff. Like, I don't know, that's just my shit. Recently, I've actually taken a break for a couple weeks, but recently I've been playing a lot of Sekiro, and I'm kind of like at home stretch. I have one boss to beat, and then I'm going to have the final zone, and then the final boss, so I'm pretty close. And I really have a hard time with that game. I don't mean this to become Sekiro talk necessarily, but hear me out, I'll get there. Sekiro's mechanics are actually, like, kind of similar to Samurai Shodown. It's all about opening up your opponent and striking at the right time, as opposed to mashing your buttons and, going hog wild, trying to accomplish stuff. And so the transition for me into Sekiro, after being a fan of From Software games since the dawn of time pretty much, and having strong fighting game background, or I guess I shouldn't say strong, but decent, more than the average person, having a big background in Samurai Shodown made the transition really easy for me into that game, and I haven't struggled too hard necessarily. It can always get worse. Oh, here we go. Nicotine. Old man named Nicotine Caffeine. I don't know. There's just something really different about the Samurai Shodown series, and the series has been around for a long time and existed relatively in obscurity. Not a lot of people are super into it. The people who are into it are into fighting games a lot, and they've played everything. You're like, oh, do you play Last Blade 2? Which KOF do you play? Do you like this? Do you like that? But you should feel like a Street Fighter fan, Smash fan, even like a BlazBlue fan or something like that. May not have necessarily ever touched these games. They weren't the most common thing back in the day, and they didn't get to be home ports until way later. I would say, I think the first Samurai Shodown came out on Super Nintendo, and it's a god-awful port. It's a bad game. I didn't really get a collection until like Wii, PSP, PS2 era. I never played that Samurai Shodown collection on those consoles. I don't know how it is, but recently Hamster has been, releasing every SNK game pretty much in an arcade perfect port. No online support, doesn't have jack shit, maybe some online leaderboards, that's it. But they're cheap, they're like $7. They have 2-player local, which is, what you want if you're playing a fighting game and you're bringing this setup to a gathering and you want to play with other people. It's a cheap way to play the game with no extra bells and whistles. You either love what Hamster's doing or you hate it. I'm fine with what Hamster does if I want like a comprehensive you know, anniversary collection, I will buy that. You know, spend more than $7 to get that. Which, there's one of those coming out for Samurai Shodown, I think, in September, and I will, of course, buy that because I'm a big idiot fan, and I want to see the extras in there. But, I don't know, this game really attracted young me. This Samurai Shodown 2, which Samurai Shodown 2 footage is going to end in a little bit, isn't like the most violent thing ever, but as the games go on, they get really, I don't know, what I can only describe as anime bloody in a really cool way. And I liked the game, I liked the style, even though I didn't know jack shit about Japanese culture at the time, because I was a little kid. I was like 7 or something when I first started playing this. But it had all those things, and it was kind of cool and kind of gory and a little edgy, and I was like, oh, am I going to get in trouble if I play this? Is my mom going to find out and whoop my ass? Which didn't happen. She didn't care. She gave me the quarters to play this stuff. There was something that, I don't know, just pulled me to the cabinets. The sound was awesome. Like, the combat noise was really cool. A lot like what Mortal Kombat cabinets were doing back in the day. I don't know how many people are like aware of this, but the big thing in arcades back in the day was how loud is your cabinet, how thumping are those fucking speakers inside, because that's how you get people's attention, if the game is loud and people are crowded around it. And that's something Ed Boon knew back in the day, and that's why every Mortal Kombat cabinet you've ever seen is the loudest piece of shit in the world, because it's meant to be, because they want your quarters, they want you to play it. And this game sounded unique, so it got me to play it. Like, there was the SNK cabinet with this laundromat. There was Miss Pac-Man, which is a classic, but I'm not into Pac-Man, so I never really had a lot of fun playing that. There's an Asteroids cabinet, which is really cool, and I think it had some type of vector graphics or something, but it was, you know, it was old. And there was a Capcom 1944 cabinet, and 1944 is really cool, but I'm horrible at shmups, so I never really spent much time playing that shit. Even though it's awesome, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for young me. I had no pattern recognition. I just wanted to play this. I could follow fighting games. They were my favorite thing as a child. I could look at it and understand what's going on. There's two people. They're fighting. There's one winner. There's one loser. That's it. And Samurai Shodown was that in its best form to me, and kind of continues to be today. Like, I think really soon after the Switch released, like the console itself, the hamster arcade port of Samurai Shodown 4 dropped like a week or two after, and I was like, oh, I'll get that. There's not a lot of games to play on here. I remember liking Samurai Shodown, and it was kind of a little test for me to be like, is this just nostalgia, or are these games good as fuck? And most of them are really good. They still hold up. 4 holds up. 2 is a classic. It holds up for some people. I'm not the biggest fan of it, because 2 has some bullshit that the first game has, and the first game has it more so than the second game. But like the first game, the second have like these jackass dudes that run through the stage and throw bombs at you, or healing items at people, which like isn't very fun or balanced if you're playing a one-on-one 2D fighting game, and it's kind of frustrating. And the first game had a lot of that, and the AI is insanely hard, even on the easiest setting. The AI is like vicious, and then there's shirtless men throwing bombs at you and stuff, and it's clearly an early SNK game meant to take your quarters, much like Metal Slug was at the time. I love Metal Slug, but you're not going to catch me dead playing that in an arcade where, like, I'm paying real money to play it over and over. But if I have Infinite Continues, then cool. Now we're switching over to Samurai Shodown 4 footage over here, because 4 is a really good game, has a different control scheme, much darker, has a lot of new characters. It's awesome, but between 2 and 4, of course, there's Samurai Shodown 3. I have barely touched Samurai Shodown 3, even though I own it. Something feels off about it, like not quite right. I don't know what it is, and the art style is very different. It's almost like 90s American comic book, but I kind of like it. It's an interesting game, but there's something that feels strange about it, but it did give us one of the coolest characters ever. The boss of that game is this giant man named Zankuro, who has like a lion's mane of white hair, and he's really, really cool. And he made it into later versions of the game. So 3 gave us Zankuro at least, and a really cool Galford sprite, which Galford is an American ninja character. There's the literal Hattori Hanzo in this game as a cool ninja, and then Galford, an American ninja from San Francisco who has a dog that he can use as a projectile named Poppy, and she's really cool. And as the games go on, Poppy gets more beat up and starts looking like a what is that wolf called? wolf called in Metal Gear 5? Dee Dee. Looks like Dee Dee. So here in Samurai Shodown 4, you can see there's multiple grooves and guard states and stuff like that, but I don't know. I'm really excited for the new Samurai Shodown. I guess I should talk about that a little bit more instead of just narrating my past with Samurai Shodown, even though that's kind of what I wanted to do from the get-go. But the new game has a lot of classic characters, has a couple of new ones that look absolutely fucking awesome, like great. Like Darlie Dagger is a new character. There's a new ninja boy. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's very cool. It's taking the control scheme of like Samurai Shodown 4 and I think 3. Because there's kind of different control schemes between like the first two games and 5 have similar control schemes, which are fine, but in my opinion work best on an arcade stick, and it's not always great on a controller. Maybe some people have an easier time on a regular gamepad, but it was always a little tough for me. But I love Samurai Shodown 5, so I grit my teeth and play with those controls anyway. Oh yeah, and hopefully you saw the photosensitivity warning I threw on the beginning of this thing, because these games fucking flash. I swear they almost trigger something in me, and I am not a person who suffers from photosensitivity, or something, so, or any kind of epilepsy in it. It fucks with me, so if you have any sort of photosensitivity issues, it probably fucks with you too. But that's Japanese arcade games for you. They do that. But, I don't know. Like, anyway, back to Samurai Shodown, the new one, which I guess would be the 8th game. It's just being rebooted as Samurai Shodown, or Samurai Spirits in Japan. It doesn't have a number tied to it, but you're kind of getting that Samurai Shodown 2 style of gameplay with the control scheme of 4, which is what is on screen currently. That's a really good combo. The graphical style is kind of like Street Fighter 4 was back in the day, like kind of brushstrokey, but even a little more so. It's supposed to kind of look like Japanese woodblock paintings. But it's still gory, still cool, still the same flow. Cool cinematic cameras for finishers. Oh, there's Obama. Anyway, that's coming, and I'm excited, and it's releasing on everything, which is awesome. You know, that's something you don't get like Street Fighter, or even SNK's last big console release, I guess I should say, which is King of Fighters 14. They had SNK Heroines or whatever the fuck, but that's kind of a weird budget, it's like a budget horny game, not really what people are playing in tournaments, or not something you'd invite your friend over to look at. You'd probably be a little embarrassed about it. But KOF was only on PS4 as far as I know. There might be a PC port, but new Samurai Shodown in June is hitting Xbox One, which is really cool because Xbox One doesn't get a lot of fighting games. And Xbox people want to play fighting games too, give them stuff to play. It's coming to PS4, it's coming to, and then a few months after that, there's going to be a Switch port and a PC port, which is awesome. Everybody's going to get to play. The game is also going to be on the main stage at EVO, which took a lot of people by surprise. A surprising amount of people by surprise, actually. I was surprised how many people I have seen on, Twitter and stuff like that are really ingrained in the fighting game community. They go to EVO every year, they compete every year, and a lot of them are like, what the fuck is Samurai Shodown? What is this nothing game? Why is this taking the place of Super Smash Bros. Melee, which Smash players act like that sometimes. Not all of them, but some of them. The ones who do are very vocal, so they give the poo-poo smell to the other good people in that community, which is unfortunate, but any online community will do that, But people are kind of like skeptical because there's been like a weird little teaser for the game, and that's it. No release date and no extensive trailers, not a lot of gameplay, which has since come out because EVO is in August, I think. And naturally, competitors were worried of like, when is this game coming out? Am I gonna have time to learn it before the tournament? You can have a month or two. I guess yeah, like maybe a month and a half to learn it, which isn't a lot, but the game has a lot to deliver. And I'm really excited to see it on the EVO stage. There hasn't been a lot that I've been interested in watching for EVO over the last few years. Like, I like Street Fighter V enough. I'm more of a Third Strike fan, but I can get into Street Fighter V. Oh, here we have Samurai Shodown 5 popping up on the screen now, but more about that in a second. But I'm not the biggest fan of Street Fighter V. I don't feel like I need to watch it again. I would rather do anything else than watch people play Smash competitively. It's not my thing. Tekken's cool, and I've played Tekken casually throughout a decent chunk of my life, but it's always been a casual experience for me, so like I don't know what's going on screen. I don't know any tech with Tekken. I just don't know the game that well. Like, I know Tekken 3 pretty well, that's it. I was on and off with 4, which is a bad game. 5, which was PSP exclusive for a little bit. It's a good game, but it didn't get a port until later. 6, which is confusing to me. 6 is a weird game. It's a really weird game. It feels strange. The story mode is really weird. It introduces Lars. Nobody likes Lars. And then, you know, Tekken 7's out, and I own Tekken 7, and it's fun to goof around with when a friend's over or something, but it's not my favorite. But we're kind of going on to the gold standard here. Well, not exactly this version, but we have I guess I should finish that thought. I'm excited to see something I understand at EVO, and I might actually, you know, tune in and watch that. Anyway, back to Samurai Shodown 5. So this is the base version of Samurai Shodown 5, and I'm kind of pissed off about it because I recorded this footage like all night and was editing it, and then the next day, with zero fanfare, Samurai Shodown 5 Special dropped on Switch, which is the way better game. And I didn't know that. I don't think anybody knew that. Hamster just dropped the arcade port for $7, and I'm like, fuck, okay, I recorded this inferior version, but whatever, we're gonna go with it. I'm not gonna re-edit 5 special footage into it. 5 has some new characters, remove some characters. I don't remember which ones get removed from this roster here, but has had some balance changes, and Samurai Shodown 5 Special is considered one of the most balanced fighting games ever made, somehow, with all these zany-ass characters that you're seeing on the screen right now. And all sorts of weird tech, and Samurai Shodown 5 has more violence. It has gross fatalities in it. If you're in a certain state, you can split people in half and shit. It's not quite Mortal Kombat violence, but it's still very cool. Makes you feel like an edgy teenager, but like Samurai Shodown 5 is the sweet spot for me personally, or at least with 5 Special. I would have hoped that Sam Show 2019 would have been more based on 5 than it is, but it's not. But you know, there's room for change. But I don't know. I just love Samurai Shodown 5. I really love the series. It's also the only weapon fighter I've really gotten into. There's been a few 3D weapon fighters back in like the 64 and PlayStation era that I did not really like Mace the Dark Age and shit like that. But the other natural comparison is Soul Calibur, which is, you know, a 3D game, not a 2D game. And Soul Calibur is also something I've enjoyed casually throughout my life, but I'm not into the game competitively whatsoever. It's a little hard for me to break into. The only 3D fighting game I'm any good at is Virtua Fighter, and Virtua Fighter's been dead for years, but I don't know. This was a weapon fighter that was so deceptively easy to play, but had so much hidden tech if you really wanted to get into it. Like, there are like blade clashes, and pretty like most of the games where you can mash a button and the winner disarms the other player, and their sword or whatever weapon they're using is sitting somewhere on stage and they gotta go pick it up, and so they lose a lot of moves like that. There are super moves that you can use that also disarm players and do a lot of damage. And the coolest thing about disarming other players is if you're a badass, disarming isn't the end for you. If somebody swings their sword at you and you're disarmed and you know the right input and you're a good player, you will catch the other character's weapon or sword in your hands, like between the two of them, like you clap onto the blade and rip it out of their hand and flip over your shoulder and do a bunch of damage and disarm them, and then their sword kind of converts into your weapon, and then you have a weapon again, so you disarmed the disarmer. Which I only ever do by accident. I'm not good enough to do that. I don't think that ever happens in any of these videos that I recorded, or any of this footage I do. But I don't know, like, all that shit is just so cool, and there aren't many 2D fighting games that do stuff like that, that have different guard breaks and parry states and disarmaments and different types of supers. You can I think after you build up your super gauge on the bottom of the screen there, you can use that for supers, or you can consume it and go into what is called a state of nothingness, which is a 25% slow-mo debuff on your opponent. So you move normal speed, they don't. And while you're in the state of nothingness, you can do an Asen attack, which is the typical anime thing of, like, you draw your sword, your sword, and there's a flash, and you just kind of shoot across the screen, and the other person is standing still, then they bleed everywhere and slide in half and die. And it's very cool. You have all that. You can just use a rage burst, which gives you like a damage bonus, which the damage bonus is tied to the little arrow on the health gauge up top, which you can maneuver and, you know, gain more of by meditating. And after you do that rage burst, you lose your special gauge, so it's a very, like, high risk, high reward maneuver that you can do. You can try and whoop somebody's ass, but then lose your gauge for the rest of the match, which is really cool. And then there's that green gauge under the health bar there, which is, I think that is exclusive to Samurai Shodown 5, but that kind of ticks down anytime you attack, and it ticks down at varying rates, whether it's a special, heavy slash, medium slash, light slash, or whatever. And when that ticks down, your attacks do less damage, and the only way it fills back up is you easing off the opponent. So that basically keeps you from mashing your buttons, because you're just going to get weaker and weaker if you just keep whiffing attacks. It's incentivizing you to wait for openings or make an opening and slash for the maximum amount of damage, which kind of ties itself back into Sekiro. You kind of have a similar gauge, the posture gauge, where you want to max that out on somebody else and not have it maxed out on yourself. And the only way you're going to lower your own gauge is by staying in a guarded position and keeping your footing and parrying attacks, as opposed to disengaging and running away. That's how that gauge in Sekiro slowly depletes, but if you want it to deplete quickly, you have to stay in the fight, parry, make an opening, and be relentless on your opponent. And you relentlessly parrying and attacking your opponent maxes out their gauge and eventually breaks them, and you get a death blow. So that type of mechanic was kind of already familiar to me prior to Sekiro coming out, and I was able to adjust with that. It's kind of just like the inverse of what it is in this game. But like, Samurai Shodown is a really fucking cool series. You can get most of the games in the series for like $7 a pop with these hamster ports. There's some bad ones in there. 3 isn't great. 1 isn't great. Samurai Shodown 6 is a fucking nightmare of a fighting game. It's too much fighting game. Every character has like 8 grooves. There's too many goddamn characters. There's a couple cool ones. There's this lady that's like some sort of mechanized closet. And then there's President fucking Andrew Jackson in the game. Which, like, Andrew Jackson is cool. I would like Andrew Jackson back because it's fucking ridiculous. But 6 has too many characters, too many grooves. It doesn't have any of the cool violence. It's a slow game, unlike these ones. And all these like background characters and pets and like monkeys in the background from other games are playable characters with fucked up hitboxes. But I don't know. The footage is done for now. I've talked a lot about Samurai Shodown just because I really, really wanted to. I'll probably throw some Samurai Shodown 6 footage in this. Maybe. We'll see. Just because it's a weird game. But anyways, I just wanted to tell my history about Samurai Shodown, why I like it so much, and why you should check it out if you're into 2D fighting games. So thanks for listening to me go off on games that not a lot of people care about. Thanks. Goodbye.